Welcome, everybody. We're going to give everyone a minute to come on in. We had a lot of interest in this panel, which is great to see. Welcome, everybody. We're going to give everyone just a minute or two, and then go ahead and get started. See a lot of folks from DC. Welcome to everybody from DC, and see a lot of folks from the Highline Network. Hello to everybody from the Highline Network. Why don't we go ahead and get started? I know more folks are going to be joining us too, but wanted to give a warm welcome to everybody. Happy Wednesday. My name is Scott Kratz. I'm the Senior Vice President of Building Bridges Across the River, and welcome to the first in a three-part series of programs that we'll have every month, exploring elements of the 11th Street Bridge Park. The 11th Street Bridge Park is a partnership between our Ward 8 nonprofit, East of the River nonprofit called Building Bridges Across the River, and the district government working with the District Department of Transportation to transform an old aged out freeway into a new park, a new civic space that will literally and physically and metaphorically bridge long divided communities. This civic space was designed over the last 10 years through over 1,000 meetings with the community and local stakeholders. We're very happy to share that we'll be, after 10 years of working with the community every step, we're breaking ground at the end of this year. Big clap. But in addition to investing in the bricks and mortar of this park, we've also been spending a lot of time over the last 8 years investing in the nearby residents to make sure, and communities and neighborhoods, to ensure that those same thousands, tens of thousands of residents who've helped shape the project from the beginning can be the ones that benefit from it. We launched in 2015 what we called our Equitable Development Plan that has strategies in affordable housing, preservation of businesses and supporting businesses, arts and culture strategies, and workforce development. And as part of our one of our key strategies as part of our small business effort, last year we commissioned a mobile small business kiosk that will be on the future park. A curatorial committee comprised of local residents selected the River East Design Center, who you'll be hearing from today, to design and build the kiosk. Construction is imminent, which is really exciting. And we didn't want to, because we didn't want to wait for the park to open, with generous support from Capital One, thank you, Capital One, the kiosk will launch at this year's Anacostia River Festival. So save the date for the afternoon of Saturday, May 20th, and come on down to Anacostia Park for an amazing day of music and celebration, but also to check out this really cool mobile small business kiosk. This afternoon, we are bringing together Anna McCorvey from the River East Design Center to talk about this project, along with 2 other amazing pop-up projects from across the country supporting small businesses of color. We are very pleased, in addition to Anna, welcoming Fabiola Ramirez, who is the Associate Director of Creative Entrepreneurship and Operations at Arts and Public Life, an initiative of UChicago Arts at the University of Chicago, and Kara Cooper, who is the Director of Economic Development at the Atlanta BeltLine, Inc. And very pleased to, as well, welcome our moderator for the day, who will be Sarah Adams, who's from Washington, D.C.'s Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development. We're going to begin this morning with a presentation by Anna, then followed by Fabiola, and then Kara. Sarah will be asking a few questions to get things going after the presentations, but then we welcome questions from you. So if you have questions, we encourage everyone to use the chat and comment but if you have questions that you want us to tackle, please put it in the Q&A feature, which the staff will be monitoring and then sharing with Sarah. And then we will end a few minutes before 1 o'clock, let you go on to have your day with a couple announcements about some events coming up. So with that, let me turn things over to Anna. And I'm going to share my screen.
Awesome.
There you go.
Perfect. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to be with you. A beautiful day in DC. I hope it's also a beautiful day wherever you are joining us from. My name is Anna McCorvey, as Scott mentioned. I'm the Executive Director of the River East Design Center. And I'll be talking about the 11th Street Bridge Park mobile retail kiosk, how my organization came to the project, as well as how the kiosk fits into the overall equitable development plan. Next slide. For the sake of time, I won't read everyone's name here, but there have been a lot of people who have stepped up to help this project move forward. And these individuals pictured here are who I think of as the core team. Next slide. So a little bit about the River East Design Center. The organization was founded with the specific purpose of serving Ward 7 and Ward 8 communities in the District of Columbia through design. And our mission is to empower underserved communities to shape their own environments. We're a nonprofit organization with 2 umbrellas of service, one being educational outreach and the other being affordable design services like architecture. So how did we enter into this relationship with the park? Actually, it's almost been a year ago to the day that we responded to a call for artists from the 11th Street Bridge Park. We were then selected as the design team for the mobile retail kiosk. I'm a practicing architect here in DC, and every project isn't always fun and exciting, but this project has definitely been a joy from the moment that we started on it. So I'll elaborate a little bit more on our process in a minute. Next slide. Next slide.
Sorry.
Is it frozen?
It's frozen. Give me one quick second.
I can continue. So Scott kind of gave an overview about how the kiosk itself actually fits into the equitable development plan. The call of artists I mentioned, in the call of artists, there were a number of projects actually. The kiosk, mobile kiosk being just one of them. The thing that's particularly unique about this project is that it will be delivered before the completion of the park, which I think is really cool. The other projects are tied to the park. The equitable development plan, well, the kiosk falls under the small business enterprise portion of the equitable development plan, specifically the first strategy that's listed on the slide. Next slide. So I don't want to assume everyone is from DC. So just to give you a quick orient you really quickly, the red star shows where the park is in relation to the rest of the District of Columbia. Next slide. And the red line shows the future location of the park. So these two sides of the Anacostia River differ pretty significantly when it comes to things like median home values, unemployment rates, poverty numbers, et cetera, with the east of the river neighborhoods having less than favorable numbers in those areas. So the ED plan fully acknowledges this, and all the strategies of the plan are in support of connecting these two sides of the river and serving as an anchor for equitable and inclusive economic growth. Next slide. So when we started thinking about the actual design of the kiosk, we identified a few principles that guided us throughout the project. These were chosen after we reviewed the ED plan, also after a few preliminary conversations with small business owners in the area. Next slide. This is the concept design that we submitted to the curatorial committee. We wanted to emulate the linear wood siding that you see on many of the homes throughout the neighborhoods that surround the park. We also knew that the kiosk would be traveling around the city, so we wanted it to be an ambassador for East of the River communities as well. To achieve this, we incorporated a series of decorative metal panels that will depict scenes from the surrounding neighborhoods. And I'll point those out to you later. So after we were selected to design the kiosk, we began to firm up our outreach efforts, striving to hit all levels of collaboration, particularly at the empower level where stakeholders have direct decision-making power. Next slide. And so we did this by distributing a digital survey. We did site visits to local markets. We had a design charrette with some small business owners, the kinds of businesses that we envisioned would be using the kiosk. And we established an advisory group that has been advising throughout the process, but will also kind of serve as a thread of continuity as the program continues in the future. Next slide. So here are a few images of some of those outreach initiatives. The two images on the left showing the vertical panels. Those are two displays that we had up at the ARC here in DC, soliciting feedback from people in the area on two potential options for the metal panels that are going to go on the outside of the kiosk. Like I mentioned, the kiosk will be an ambassador for the community. So we want the community's input on what images they feel represent the neighborhood or neighborhoods. So this is the updated to design. When we went back to the concept, we revised the design based on the feedback that we received. Some of the key elements of the kiosk are the customizable product display area, the option to use a transaction window or to invite shoppers inside, and like I mentioned, the incorporation of imagery from the surrounding community. Next slide. So here's where we are right now in the timeline. We recently had our construction kickoff meeting with our contractor partner, and we are on schedule to be completed in time for the Anacostia River Festival on May 20th. It is really hard to believe that we're delivering this project pretty much, a year after we got the job, but we're doing it, and it is going great. Next slide. Oh. And that is it for me. And I'm sure people will have some questions later.
Thank you, Anna. We're going to move on to Fabiola. And just tell me when you'd like to the next slides, Fabiola.
Sounds great. Hi, my name is Fabiola Ramirez. I am the Associate Director of Creative Entrepreneurship and Operations at Arts in Public Life. We are an initiative of U Chicago Arts at the University of Chicago. Next slide, please.
Same thing's happening. Give me 1 second, Fabiola.
Okay, no worries.
We do the whole run through and then
Never fails.
Never fails.
Yeah.
Give me 1 more second. Let me just reopen it again. All right. Second time's the charm.
Okay, let's go.
Okay.
All right. Next slide.
It's not letting me.
Okay, I can keep on talking if that's okay.
Yeah, keep going and I'll solve this.
Sure, not a problem. L1 is a hybrid between a 10-month fellowship and a physical retail store, which was launched by Arts and Public Life in efforts to strengthen the capacity of Chicago's South Side cultural sector and remove barriers of entry into our neighborhood. The idea was born out of an annual holiday market that we titled Vents and Vibes. Year after year after year, we saw that the same vendors were coming to vend from our marketplace. And after the 6th, 7th, 8th year, we asked the question, why are you vending in our markets and other markets, and why don't you start by opening up your own brick and mortar space? And the answer was pretty simple and straightforward. They simply say, we don't even know how to start the conversation. So the idea was born, the program was built, we pitched it to the university, it was accepted, and then we did fundraising and earned monies to operate this opportunity as part of the Arts Block, which is a whole city block in the Washington Park neighborhood on the south side of the city of Chicago. Now, we're not experts. We are art administrators, cultural producers, and we realized that we needed some help. So we reached out to a few folks in our network that are experts and that do have the experience in this business. And we partner with them, one being Eric Williams from the Silver Room, another being the Polsky Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation at the university. So, Scott, you want me to pause?
Actually, this is where we went into backup moment. So Anna Jane is on it. So, but just go ahead and tell us next, and we'll follow.
Okay, next slide. These are our partners. Next slide. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about L1, the actual physical space. Next slide, please. L1 is located in the Chicago Transit Authority's first L station that was built in 1892. And the idea was to build this station to connect the Chicago's downtown area to the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition in Jackson Park. Next slide. We are a tiny but mighty 700 square foot retail space. Next slide. So now I'm going to talk about the fellowship. Next slide. The fellowship is rooted in 4 major points: the entrepreneurship part, the mentorship part, community, and then the physical space. Next slide. This is Andrea, Tiffany, and Peter. They formed our inaugural cohort that started right before the pandemic and made things very interesting for us. But these 3 business owners had to learn how to work together to operate 4 different businesses out of 1 retail space. Next slide. Now, the big question, how do we measure success? We just completed our first cohort. We do not have a base to compare it to for measurement. So the way that we measure success is the economic development that this fellowship had and how it led to a workforce development, which allowed the fellows to continue to vend in different markets across the country. Another successful point is that they learned how to be cultural producers, and they were able to put together events and programs that are rooted in their personal brand, that are also rooted in their business and the products that are sold. Next slide. We thought that a measure of success will be booming, popping, established storefronts along the south side. And we thought that they were going to open their own spaces. And it turns out that no one wanted to really open their own space. So that was very surprising for us. But we did care about what they talked about and how they talked about their experience with us. So these are 3 different quotes from Tiffany, Peter, and Andrea. Next slide. We also want to highlight some great news of what happens after they graduate. Again, we thought they were going to open spaces. They didn't. They are more interested in opening maker spaces. However, they did expand their business by selling in other institutions like the Wonder Museum, Walmart across the country, and to further their education and professional development to grow their business. Next slide. What did we learn collectively is the power of building community. If you build community, again, rooted on your personal brand, your business, and the products that you sell, you will form a loyal customer base. Next slide. Which results in folks following your business and following the programs that you do. These are photos from a summer market that we hosted in June of last year. Next slide. And these are photos from 2 different special programs that each fellow curated as part of their experience. Next slide. So what's next? Next slide. The next cohort starts in March, so I have a few weeks to put it all together. Next slide. And then that annual holiday market that we hosted in December will be moved to a new space that we are inaugurating this spring. It's called the Arts Lawn. So now we have the capacity of doing everything that we did indoors in an outdoor platform, including the events and vibes market. So it's no longer a holiday market. It's now a summertime marketplace. Next slide. And that's us. This is where you can find us, email, call us. Any questions, I'm happy to help you. Thank you.
Thank you, Fabiola, and thank you for being patient as we were fixing our technical issues.
No worries. Thank you so much.
Can't wait to see the Arts Lawn this spring, this summer. Our last panelist is a fellow Highline Network member, Kara Cooper. And Kara, take it away.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. If you need to move, get a little moving done. Hope you're still awake with us, but we're so excited to share about these transformative projects with you that are happening all over the country. Certainly at the Atlanta BeltLine, we hope to inspire others around the country as we try to innovate here in Atlanta. And so just to share a little bit about our project in general. So the Atlanta BeltLine is a 22-mile trail and transit project through the urban core of our city. It goes through 45 neighborhoods, about 160,000 residents live within about a half mile of the loop, more than 6,000 business licenses. And so it's really one of the largest redevelopment projects in the country. It's going to be about $4 billion, and it's going and has been transforming our city into a walkable, just very focused on community and bringing people together. Atlanta is a city where young people can have a dream. We have a lot of dreamers here in Atlanta. And so some of y'all know some of our most historic dreamers, but we also are a place where young people can have a dream and make it a reality. And so this project really was born at Georgia Tech as a thesis statement and has been able to be championed by citizens and the people. We were a city built on a railroad, and that railroad was used to divide communities by race historically. And so now we're transforming this railroad corridor as a place where all Atlantans can come together. And while the project has attracted more than $8 billion in private investment, we have about $800 million so far in public investment, and it's also attracted 25,000 jobs. We have really tried to shift our focus as an organization over the past 3 years to really focus in on how this project is going to continue to ensure to lift up all Atlantans. As Scott mentioned a minute ago, we're so honed in on making sure that the very people who champion this project and have lived in our communities, especially on the south and west sides of our city, are able to take advantage of all the economic opportunity that this project brings. So we've also been reimagining economic development, and these are our 4 areas of focus as part of that strategy. And what I really want to hone in today is our commercial affordability focus. And so just like I cannot tell you how we are thinking about affordable housing like many of your communities are all over the country daily. On our economic development team, we're also trying to lift the message here in Atlanta and nationally about commercial affordability, ensuring that businesses of color, mom and pops, entrepreneurs have access to the most desired neighborhoods in our communities and are able to stay in the neighborhoods where they've already served. We talk about our small businesses are keepers of Atlanta's culture. And so we want to make sure the BeltLine is able to be a support to ensuring that vibrancy of the neighborhood commercial districts that are around the full circle. So as you can imagine, this type of infrastructure has really driven an increase in rents. One of our lowest socioeconomic areas around the trail, when I started, $10 a square foot, and now we're seeing rents at $40 a square foot. And so this is something we are just hugely, just so desiring to make an impact, and are launching a strategy this year. So any consultants interested in the work, please, reach out. We'll be putting out a request for proposal soon, but we want a strategy to say how we are going to influence commercial affordability in our city. And in the meantime, we have gone ahead and launched the BeltLine Marketplace, which is our pilot program, really focused on creating commercial affordable space on the actual trail. So our trail has really been more botanical garden, but if you've been to Atlanta, Pont City Market and a lot of the other developments have driven just such commerce and vibrancy around our trail. And so we really wanted to take advantage of small pieces of land that we had adjacent to the trail to create economic opportunity. So we were lucky enough, as this idea was forming, a year ago. So same, I think Fabiola was saying, I can't believe we're open. And Anna as well. But, just really, Candida Foundation had just such a heart for seeing Black and brown businesses on the BeltLine corridor. And so that catalytic funding allowed us to focus this pilot program on 6 Black entrepreneurs that were selected. You can look on our website, but we have a family-owned business. We have just women-owned, but 6 Black entrepreneurial companies that are in these spaces. And what we learned, and I'll go quick, but what we learned before we started the program is we needed to make sure we had comprehensive wraparound business development services for our participants. And so we have really built out with the Village Market, a local partner here in Atlanta, just these wraparound services before they came into the containers, while they're in the containers, and as they graduate later this year, we're working on their graduation plans and how we're going to have the aftercare for these businesses as they're moving on to their next stage. We also had talked to a lot of projects and knew that we needed to take on that initial build out and tenant improvement costs Even as a reimbursement, it can be an incredible barrier to entry for our businesses of color here in Atlanta, and our local businesses that are local entrepreneurs that are trying to get into a brick and mortar. And so we have done the build out of the spaces so that it's pretty turnkey. They're able to come in and bring their goods and just start selling. Another amazing thing, as you can see here, the trail itself is a graffiti writing wonderland at this part under the bridge here called Freedom Parkway in Atlanta. And so we were able to work with our arts and culture team to tap into two of the godfather of graffiti writing here in Atlanta, and then just one of the up and coming legends here in our city to really just bring authentic art that has also acted as a major maintenance, right? Because people respect these artists in the community. And so they would not dare interfere with their art. So it's been an incredible collaboration. And as we expand the program, so we're looking at our current sites and how we can maybe do some additional pop-up with artists and other small businesses that might not be ready for the incubator. But I will say, we really feel like the policy issues, it really allowed us to identify a lot of issues in our current policies at the city, state, and county levels that we can hopefully use our influence to address over the coming months, that will not only help us as we expand the project, but can open up micro commercial space development across our state, and hopefully really push the needle with commercial affordability here in Atlanta. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Kara. I'm going to turn things over to Sarah for a few questions to get things going, and then we'll turn to Q&A from the audience. A reminder, if you have any questions, please drop them in the Q&A. Sarah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Scott. Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Sarah Adams, and I'm with the Office of the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development. Thank you so much to all of you for your presentations and for sharing all of the wonderful information about your programs. It's really exciting to hear about these transformational projects and activations and all the great work that you are doing to enhance these spaces and to increase the vibrancy of your neighborhoods while centering local entrepreneurs, small businesses, and residents, while also engaging the community as well. So as Scott mentioned, we have a few questions, prepared questions for that's open to all the panelists, and then we'll go into a Q&A session during the last 10 minutes of the session. So we'll start off with the first question. How does each of your programs define success? And I know, Fabiola, you touched on this a little bit during your presentation. So if Anna or Kara, you want to jump in to kickstart the conversation.
I'll be quick. So from a design perspective, I'd say for Design Center, the kiosk itself, the power of it is in its mobility. So creating something that is easy for the Anacostia bid, who will be the organization that's actually managing the kiosk after construction. So creating something easy for the bid to maneuver around the city, as well as creating something that would serve as an ambassador for East of the River communities. Those are some goals of ours. On the program side of things, Scott mentioned, I think in the chat, that we're working with Accenture to provide those wraparound services that I think, Kara, you mentioned. And through that, we can let the small business owners define what success is to them. So success for them is what success would look like for us on the programming side. And that could be, maybe getting to a brick and mortar store one day. It could be scaling up their product. It could be any host of things for them.
Hey, and Kara here, I agree. Each of our business owners have really laid out goals with their small business incubator with our small business incubator partner, the Village Market. And so really helping them achieve their goals before they graduate and upon graduation. We also, Google and Fiserv are other partners, funding partners. And so Fiserv donated the Clover system to the project. So we've been able to track sales. We've seen incredible sales for the individual businesses as they're getting stabilized and able to their full product line. And we've seen, also just a huge opportunity to get the word out nationally through, nearly 2 million people have interacted and engaged with the project. So those are some of the things that I think are really exciting. But for us, especially from a commercial affordability goal, we're trying to create here in Atlanta on the BeltLine a replicable and sustainable model that we could expand. So we want to make sure that it is a program that can hopefully become revenue neutral or at least be able to cover its operating costs. We want to be able to crack the code for how to continue to provide these commercial affordable opportunities for the long term. And hopefully as we grow and expand, we could be providing this type of space to 50 or more entrepreneurs a year. So we're really excited about the potential of this pilot program.
Wow, that's great. And Fabiola, did you just want to kind of recap what the success looks like for your programs?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. I want to start that initially we were going to measure success with the number of retail stores popping up on the South Side. And I was telling Scott that to our surprise, none of them wanted a retail store. They were more interested in a maker space that served as a kitchen to make their candles, to store their candles, and then them curate an experience like by appointment only for their open retail hours. So we had to pivot a little bit. And the way that we measure success is by the economic development. The fellows realized that they had to work their store, and it took them away from making and vending at different markets. So they had to learn how to hire folks to help them run their business so they can go and vend. And that led to workforce development because we hired our neighbors from the Washington Park community. As a result of that, the fellows were able to vend across 30 different markets across the country. Another measurement of success is the skill set that they walked away with, and it's the ability of being a cultural producer and producing events and programs that are rooted in their personal brand, their businesses, the products that they sell as a way of building community, which is the number one lesson that we learned from this first year of the cohort.
Great. Thank you so much. Yeah, the commonality across all programs sounds like building community, successful businesses, thriving entrepreneurs is the overarching theme for measuring success for these programs. So that's fantastic. The next question is, what are the barriers unique to small business of color that you all have experienced with the different projects and programs that you've been working on?
I can go if that's okay.
Sure.
Some of the barriers for accessibility and also an ability to relate from a creative, artistic vocabulary to a more focused business entrepreneurship vocabulary. Another barrier is access to resources, both human and non-human resources. So we offer that. And I'm sure there are others that I can't think of right now. So I'm just going to pass it on to Kara.
Sure. So here in Atlanta, the Prosperity Now report had found in 2017 that Black business values are around $58,000, and our white owned are 650,000. Latinx is 450,000. So we have a lot of work to do in our city to make sure that we're breaking down systemic barriers and really making sure there's paths to access. And we see the BeltLine as a perfect ground to test out programs. And so again, as I mentioned earlier, it is hard when you're in the quasi-governmental space. So we were just really lucky to have a funder that was so dedicated to supporting Black-owned businesses as part of the pilot program. And, you know, we really see our just the cost and affordability as a major barrier to entry. We also don't have a lot of new development on our south and west sides, right? So we also just need more space in general. And so providing these new spaces with, as I mentioned earlier, about 2 million visitors annually on the BeltLine can help bring not only the access, but also the customer base to support our businesses of color here in the city.
Okay. Anna, did you want to add to? Okay, and this is actually a two-part question. So what are the barriers, and then what is your program doing to address those barriers?
And I think I answered both, so I'll just to reiterate again, just really again trying to doing the build out up front so that entrepreneurs could just come in, the equipment's there, the space is ready. We also have a Black-owned property management firm who helps with just ensuring they have what they need on a day-to-day basis, and just providing that special touch. We really said, you know, we want our entrepreneurs to feel like Fortune 500. So the attention we give in Atlanta to those companies when they're coming and finding a location in the city, we wanted our entrepreneurs as part of the BeltLine marketplace to get that same red carpet and concierge touch.
Great.
The way that we are approaching this is through our partnership with Eric Williams from the Silver Room. He leads as the main mentor, and his approach is to provide two different types of mentorship experiences. One is a very general that can cover not just our fellows' businesses, but any surrounding creative entrepreneurships that need access. And then the other side is to be a very specific mentor to each fellow addressing their needs. As a result, they walk away with tangible items like templates, a network of experts and professionals, for example, an accountant, a lawyer, a professional in commercial real estate, and so on and so forth. So that they walk away with a very intentional footprint of what to do next. They're doing it during the fellowship, and the hope is that they continue the journey as they graduate and in the future.
Great. Well, thank you. So moving on to the final question, what has been the biggest major lesson that you've learned from each of your projects?
I can go again. So we built this opportunity and we opened the L1 store, which is part of the arts block. It's on the 300 East block of Garfield Boulevard in the Washington Park community. We are literally under the L station that connects the whole city to the University of Chicago and other areas. And we thought that if we build it, they will come. And we were wrong. We don't have a lot of foot traffic, so we had to learn how to call attention to this tiny little station in the middle of this arts block. And we did that by trial and error. So the biggest lessons that we learned is that you have to really build community around your personal brand. So not just, here's my candle, but more is like, I'm Fabi, I'm a creative entrepreneur. This is my background. This is who I am. This is my story. People will resonate to that. They will resonate to your business, and then they will resonate to your product. So that led to a community, a following that is very loyal and that will follow our fellows as they move on with their businesses.
And I can go next for sure. So we did have the pleasure, we have a micro space developer genius here in Atlanta named Tony Pope. He's a Black architect and is doing the design build and has brought nearly a dozen Black entrepreneurs to even just build the containers. So everything just felt so missional in the partnerships that we've had as well. But working with Tony, I mean, this was something very unique. And we have just really learned that micro development is as hard as 1 million square foot office building development. And so we had some really creative solutions that are still on the table to do some tanking with water and sewer. You can imagine in the railroad corridor, even if the city maps say there's utilities, sometimes they're not there or not in the right place. And then just also really wanting to, like I said, work on the policies at the city, county and state level to open up the opportunities for this micro commercial development, which in nature just tends to be more affordable spaces for local small businesses, and could also impact our micro development on the housing side too. So we're really excited about it, but that was a big lesson to learn.
I'd say for the mobile retail kiosk, one thing that I quickly realized was that while DC has a lot of resources for small businesses, there's still a lot of confusion about how to access those resources, how to really get plugged in. So on the programming side of things, you know, we definitely knew that this program would have to be different, would have to really assist people who sign up with going through each one of those steps, because like I had a conversation during one of our market visits with a vendor, and she made the comment, well, I don't have a business license because I heard business licenses were like $5,000. I'm like, well, that number doesn't sound right. But that's what she heard from a friend. So there's a lot of confusion out there for some of these small business folks. So our program was going to have to be very intentional, will be very intentional about really shepherding people throughout the process and telling them, communicating to them exactly what they need to know. And from a building standpoint, and Cara, your architect friend in Atlanta is absolutely right. There's a big building takes just as much effort as a small building, and vice versa. So like this, our kiosk is 6 by 12, you know, small but mighty, but it still takes the same amount of effort from a design standpoint, and maybe even a little more, because the thing is going to be hitched to a truck and moving around. So that we're thinking about, you know, wind uplift and it maneuvering over bridges and things like that.
Wow. Well, I just love the nature of the creativity and the innovation that, you know, the communities come together and to really help solve these challenges, to make these projects come to life. And so thank you all so much. We have about 10 minutes left. And so I think we're going to move over to the Q&A portion for these last 10 minutes. So give me just 1 second and let me open up the Q&A box. Okay. So the first question that we have is, can each project talk about longer term sustainability of their efforts, from Elizabeth Hag?
Yeah, I can. Oh, I'm sorry, Anna, you want to go ahead?
Just quickly, and Scott, you can jump in on this too. From a design standpoint, you know, like I mentioned, a small building takes just as much effort as a little building. So, you know, this pilot for the kiosk was different in that it is we've been thinking about it as like a demonstration project, something that the community can be involved in creating. They can see it as it's being constructed. Like we picked our site where it's going to be constructed very deliberately so that it can be accessible to folks and folks can see it actually happening. You know, is that going to be the best way moving forward? Should we want to scale and make more? That's something I've been thinking about. Like, is that going to be the most sustainable way to go about things, or are we looking at something potentially with a little bit quicker turnaround, something a little bit more off the shelf that maybe has a lower price point potentially, just to keep it sustainable and to, you know, maybe roll out a few more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'd be great.
We're seeing the foot traffic on the BeltLine as being the major correlated data point to sales for the businesses. So as we're working through our first pilot season, we're really wanting to kind of get into that cadence of, you know, having a new group kind of leading into a dark time during January and February when our weather isn't the best sometimes. So again, just really thinking about graduation plans for our current entrepreneurs, when that right timing is for recruitment to replace the businesses. And then we have a couple of really great opportunities for, you know, pretty immediate expansion of a few more spaces. And the idea would be to work with our design and construction team to go ahead and identify. We've got about, oh my gosh, we have about 9 miles of BeltLine that are about to go under construction. So there's some really critical opportunities along those segments that we've already kind of been identifying, and we could go ahead and do some of that site development work so that they're ready to go. So just again, I think as Anna said too, like just really wanting to come up with though a sustainable model. You know, is it the right move to have one market rate that's supporting the rest, you know, to be affordable, you know, so as we grow, we'll be learning from the data, from the sales data, from the businesses, to just ensure that we can kind of crack the code on how this program can sustain itself for decades to come.
I'll be brief. We have, I think like a 10 or 20-year lease with the CTA for our station. So we have to keep it going. And the way that we see that doing is by just having a more intentional, robust learning experience for each of the fellow, and also offering that for applicants that made it this close, but didn't actually get into the fellowship, in efforts that they reapply and have better chances of being a fellow in the future. In addition to that, just keep on building markets. We have the space. So just involving more creative entrepreneurs, being very intentional of the invitation being extended to the Black and Brown communities, specifically in the South Side, but we won't limit ourselves. We will open it to anyone who makes an effort to be involved.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great. The next question that we have here in the chat is from Mary Ann, and she says, it sounds like there was the need for an intermediary with close ties to our knowledge of local entrepreneurs to help connect the institution with entrepreneurs, such as the Village Market with the BeltLine and the Silver Room with UChicago. How were these intermediaries selected, and how do they benefit from the intermediary relationship?
I'll say for us, for this pilot program, again, this was a grant funded pilot program. It was just really critical. I mean, y'all, I don't know, at Washington, y'all might can relate, but there's sometimes we're the elephant in the room, right? The big, bad, scary BeltLine infrastructure coming to my community. And so, like I said, we have just really tried to be intentional. We do not want to do anything to the neighborhoods around the BeltLine. We want to lift up and the legacy that already exists, and we want to build upon that and support that and just help grow access. So we knew that, you know, we do have that reputation with some parts of Atlanta. And so it was really incredibly important that we partner with a trusted voice and a trusted partner, a group that had a proven track record with entrepreneurs of color. The Village Market, one of their very exciting programs that they run here in Atlanta is at Ponce City Market, which is like the Chelsea Market here in Atlanta, same developer. They have space. The Village Market has a village retail there where they feature probably 50 to 100 entrepreneurs' products in that storefront, with millions of people coming through that Ponce City Market annually. So again, I think for us, it was about how do we partner authentically with someone who is very trusted here in Atlanta. And I think it's been an incredible partnership. I mean, Dr. Key also has a national voice. And so just that symbiotic relationship, I think it's really helped grow their nonprofit, their organization, as well as just show our commitment to entrepreneurs of color here in Atlanta.
They mentioned Eric Williams from the Silver Room. So we intentionally invited him to be a partner because he's been a member of our community since the initiation of Arts in Public Life. So for at least 12 years. And this actually became Eric's opportunity to pay it forward and to advance 25 years of experience in a 10-month fellowship, so that other business owners that look and feel like him and sound like him and that live in the same community part of the city can actually just like go from year 1 to maybe year 5, 10, 15, 20 and speed through the process. Our success will eventually lead to his success and everyone wins.
Well, it looks like we have one more question in the chat. I don't know if we have time to get to it, Scott.
Maybe one last question and then we'll wrap up.
Okay. Oh, you know what? It disappeared.
I might have just answered it. Okay. The question was, can you talk talk about access to like water and electricity and taking out garbage, like all of those like behind the scenes things that are really critical to the success. How did each project think about that?
So I alluded to it earlier. We had initially and planned to down the road once we worked through some policy changes, but we had initially wanted to run these more like with tanked water sewer, so kind of more like a food truck. We also are kind of running these as like a shared kitchen, ghost kitchen retail space, right? Because one of these we've intentionally put in our most heavily foot trafficked area near Ponce City Market on the East Side Trail. And our commitment is to always mirroring one in a target equity area. So this is also an opportunity to bring new businesses to our communities that have not had as access to amenities as we have on other parts of the trail. So we also have this program set up to where the businesses can switch places. So Anna's able to move hers around, but we're trying to make ours, pretty flexible so that during the course of the year, the businesses would eventually be able to move back and forth. So I think for us, like the water sewer, I talked earlier, it's been insane. But the idea would be able to really work on the policy before we do major expansion and get those policies set up so that we can function and cut down our site development costs for sure.
And for a mobile building, obviously, we wanted it to be completely self-sustaining in a sense. So everything's going to be battery powered, solar powered. The kiosk will depend on, like in terms of like restroom facilities and things like that. We some of the first locations will be at markets that have these facilities. So it can't like go out into the middle of a field by itself. It does need to be at a market or at an event that has things like restroom facilities. But in terms of like basic power, we would have solar power, as well as like a hand washing station for just basic hand washing needs. So it's pretty easy to operate. A pretty easy to operate structure.
I'll be quick. We have a turnkey operations. So the fellows come into a space that is ready to go. We do not charge them rent. And then they take all the proceeds home at the end of the fellowship. However, throughout the experience, since I'm the operator of their physical space, I share everything. If your toilet explodes, this is how we're going to fix this. If the lights go off, this is how we're going to fix it. And they take that knowledge without paying out of pocket and then apply it in the future.
Okay.
Thank you. I am, let me jump in because we're right at 1 o'clock. First of all, a huge thank you to our panelists, Anna, Kara, and Fabiola. Huge thank you for Sarah for jumping in at the last minute. Did an excellent job, really appreciate it. And a big thank you to the Bridge Park team. There's lots of folks, Jessica, Shamel, Anna Jane, that have helped pull this together. 2 program notes. One, on February 21st, so next Tuesday, for those in DC, we are hosting a open house on our next version of the Equitable Development Plan here at the ARC, 1901 Mississippi Avenue, exploring new health and wellness strategies that will be incorporated into the next version of our Equitable Development Plan. So we're gonna have food, we're raffling off some gift cards. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So I encourage you to come to the ARC next Tuesday from 5 to 7. Our next panel in this series will be March 23rd. With a noontime program entitled More Than a Park, the Evolution of DC Civic Spaces, where the 11th Street Bridge Park, the Capitol Riverfront Business Improvement District, and the Downtown Bid Foundation will be talking about each of their civic spaces. And then finally, encourage you to join us on May 20th for our Anacostia River Festival and see this mobile business kiosk as it launches. So thanks to everybody. Again, have a wonderful rest of your week. Please visit bridgepark.org for any more information. And we hope everyone has a really great day. Thanks, everybody.